Hello, 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 everyone. Hello and welcome. I'm Faith. I'm the artist and astrologer of Mystick, Physick, Astrology, and I use Western Sidereal astrology in my practice to help you reconnect with your soul purpose and to really remember why you came into this world in the first place, because it's so easy to get distracted and forget. So with the broadcast, with our full moon in Sagittarius releasing workshop, today, of course, where I'm at is currently the 27th of June. Our full moon is truly full the 28th. So we're just a little bit ahead of schedule with this broadcast. Thanks for joining me, Laura. It's good to have you on. So my aim with broadcasts is always to provide guidance for you on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. So it's about responding to our transit consciously instead of reacting unconsciously, which is so easy to get caught up in. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. Okay. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Danielle. Good to have you, Amanda. I'm glad you could make it. I saw that you weren't sure if you would be able to. So I'm going to refresh my browser just quickly, if you'll bear with me. Hopefully that doesn't throw our internet connection out while it refreshes. To catch comments, if something happens to the broadcast on my phone, I want to be able to catch your comments in the group and respond to them. But welcome, it's good to have everyone here. I'm really kind of excited. If you've been on my broadcast before, you know how much I love the full moon releasing practices, because it is so freeing and so liberating to consciously decide I'm ready to move beyond, whatever it is you choose that you're ready to move beyond. And the full moon is a wonderful time to do that. It's your 20th anniversary today. That's right, Danielle, you did say that. Congratulations. I hope you are doing something fun for that. We had ours last week, so we had quite a fun time. We kind of made a week-long event of celebrating it. We didn't have plans to take, a cruise or a vacation like a lot of people do when they have landmark anniversaries. We just stayed home, but we sure made sure we had a fun time celebrating. So congratulations. Welcome to the 20-year anniversary club, right? So I have this refreshed. I'm going to go ahead and pop open the video. Here we go. And I have you all with me. And my notes. So today, welcome to Mars retrograde, everyone. I know a lot of you are feeling it rather personally, especially it seems like the last couple of weeks for folks who have Aries sun or rising, and for folks who maybe have Scorpio sun or rising. A lot of little irritations and things have come up. So try your best to be patient over the coming 2 months. It's going to be a 2-month-long transit. And Aries and Scorpio, you'll feel it. There's not really any escaping it. The rest of us, it has more to do with whether that transiting retrograde Mars is going to have some kind of contact with a planet or personal point in our natal chart. But you may find that delays are much more frustrating than they normally would be. That little silly things that go wrong are much more irritating than they should be. We've got 2 months of that, so just be aware and try to choose to breathe deep, to ground yourself, to practice patience, and especially to practice forgiveness. And by all means, please do not pick any fights. Don't start any fights. And don't react in anger if someone else starts a fight with you. Reacting in anger and starting fights is not going to serve you. What'll happen if you do that during the retrograde, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. Yes, breathing. Just breathe, Danielle. That's exactly the right thing to do. So tonight we're doing our releasing practice for the full moon in Sidereal Sagittarius. And so for those of you who might be new to the broadcast, or if you're just coming back after an absence, if you don't have your sidereal natal chart, I would encourage you to get it. Let me throw a link. I think I have it right here on my notes. So get your chart, and, even if you normally practice, say, tropical astrology, don't worry too much about using a chart that you maybe aren't familiar with or that doesn't resonate with you. The reason I say that is because you're still going to be doing your releasing practice for the same house as you would be if you were doing this for a tropical zodiac. And so it still is getting alignment. We're just working with a little bit different energy tonight. Jonna says, I'm here with one earbud in doing bedtime for the kids and listening. Well, I'm glad you could join us, Jonna. That's wonderful. Let me see if I can actually get you guys this. There we go. That's what happens when I squish my browser down so far. I can't see the comment box where I can comment on the live stream. But there we go. If you need that, just jot on over to the website real quick and plug in your birth data, and you can get a chart with your sidereal natal placements. We're working primarily with your ascendant, so the rising sign today. However, these practices that we do, the new moon intention setting and the full moon releasing, you can do them with your sun sign and your rising sign. And I do encourage you to do that because it gives you 2 opportunities every month to take advantage of releasing something that's not serving you, or making an initiation or setting an intention for something that you do want to manifest in your life. Thanks for joining us, Tracy. We're just getting started. So what I normally like to do early in the broadcast is kind of run through what house the lunation is falling in for each rising sign, and then I touch on the themes of that rising sign. That way, if you want to work with those themes, or excuse me, I touch on the themes for that house. And that way, if you want to work with those themes, you know what they are, even if you're not super familiar with house systems or super familiar with astrology. Don't worry about having anything memorized, right? But let's talk a little bit first before we jump into that about what this full moon is bringing up. This full moon is in Sidereal Sagittarius, and it's rather challenging, this particular full moon. Jupiter rules it. We consider Jupiter to be the great benefic. He brings gifts, he brings good luck, he expands what he touches. He's kind of like the protector of the zodiac, right? Well, this time around, he's facing some challenges from other planets. So right now, Jupiter is in Libra. He's catching a challenge from Mars in Capricorn right now, exactly at the full moon. And what can happen, because Mars is retrograde, right, is that Jupiter could just be serving to amplify that aggressive nature of retrograde Mars, that irritable, cranky, argumentative nature of retrograde Mars. And so this is something that we're contending with right at the same time that Mars has stationed retrograde. And when any planet is stationary, they're even more powerful, right? And so yesterday was a tough day for a lot of folks. Hopefully that will calm down here in the next couple of days. So like I said, just try to practice patience, especially with folks that you love and folks you're close to that you work alongside of in your daily life, because that's where you're going to feel this most. And what I want to also remind you, coming into July, we're entering full-blown eclipse season. And typically, what we experience with eclipses is that they can influence us. They can have an effect of up to 60 days before and after the exact date of the eclipse. And so some folks are feeling these eclipses already. Eclipses are kind of challenging. They bring about change, and it's change that we don't have any choice but to deal with. It's just going to happen. It's beyond our control. And so you just have to basically adapt to this changing environment. And so what I want you to be cognizant of is, for some of you, you're going to be feeling that strongly tonight. You may have felt it pretty strongly at the new moon we had 2 weeks ago. Typically what happens is when the luminaries, the sun or the moon, transit the same degree that the eclipse is going to happen in, even if it's that same degree of a different sign, it activates that eclipse energy for some folks. And so breath, be patient, spend a lot of time, in meditation if you can, or taking time just to go out in nature and do some grounding, just to kind of give yourself a chance to move through all of this energy that we're dealing with, especially as we come through July, in a way where it's a little bit more manageable for you. And so you might be noticing tension in the houses that the July eclipses will be activating for you. It's totally normal, okay? The tension will be mostly over by the end of August, for sure over by the end of September. So just kind of breathe deep, buckle down, get your hard hat on, right? Because by then the eclipses will have run their course. As we come out of August and September, we'll know exactly what those changes are. We'll have a chance to survey our new environment, our new surroundings, and we'll be in a better position to decide how to proceed at that point in time, okay? But thanks everyone for joining me. What I want to do now is have you grab your pen and paper. Hopefully you brought your pen and paper with you, because we're going to write down what it is we're letting go of tonight, and then we're going to release it either by burning our paper or by tearing it up, okay? But what I want to do right now is run through by sidereal rising sign, what house this particular full moon is falling in for each of you, and what the themes of that house are. And then we'll move into talking a little bit more directly about the archetypes and themes of Sagittarius and how we can use this full moon to let go of what's not serving us any longer. Jana says, right when I'm packing and moving. Yes, that's exactly the kind of change an eclipse can bring. They're permanent life-changing events. For instance, and I will be following up with all of you because I do have a separate broadcast specifically about eclipses planned for the first part of July. But just kind of a for instance, Jana, in 2010, in July 2010, we had an eclipse that conjoined my ascendant within about a degree or two. And it was at that eclipse that I quit smoking. So it was a permanent life change for me. I actually did that intentionally. I chose to quit smoking at that eclipse because I knew that I would be riding the power of it. And it was one of the best things that I ever did. It was one of the best ways that I ever used any kind of full moon energy, was to let go of an old habit and step into a new life, a new identity as a non-smoker. I've never regretted it. I've never had another craving for a cigarette ever since then. It was the best thing I ever did. 6 months later, we had another eclipse, because they do come in pairs about 6 months apart, right? That December. And that eclipse happened a week after I signed papers to buy our house. And so that was another major change of life. And so these are some of the kinds of events that you can experience, but sometimes they're events that you can't control. Someone else may leave your life, or someone may come into your life that has an impact on it going forward. So just know July will be kind of rough, and some of you may be feeling that right now. So if you have Aries rising, jumping in to the rising signs, if you have Aries rising, this is a 9th house full moon for you. And the 9th house governs higher education, long distance travel, long distance communication, so things like publishing or broadcasting or even live streaming like this. It also governs religion, law, and philosophy. Okay, now what's interesting is those same themes are the themes that Sagittarius rules. And we have our full moon in Sagittarius. And one thing I wanted to kind of call out to you as not terribly coincidental to my way of seeing the world, Justice Kennedy announcing his retirement at the full moon in the sign that governs law, right? Full moons bring about endings and culminations, and his tenure on the Supreme Court is now ending. So just kind of an interesting parallel. Those are the kinds of things you'll notice the more you kind of pay attention from an astrological perspective to events that happen in the world. If you have Taurus rising, this is going to be an 8th house full moon for you. So this has to do with other people's resources. This is things like investment earnings, insurance, taxes, inheritance, bonus or commission income, not income that you earn from the work that you do, okay? And it also has to do with debts that you might have. And then some other 8th house themes are death, rebirth, and transformation. And so some folks might experience the full moon in that way. Bree says, but July was rough last year. I just want to chill July. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I was just looking back at last year's notes about this, and it seems like the summer months that we've gone through are when we have a higher number of planets retrograde. And last year we had our eclipse season. We were kind of entering the early stages of it in July, and then it reached a crescendo in August. So we're kind of dealing with that a month earlier this year than we did last year. And yes, I just want to chill July too. I totally understand. If you have Gemini rising, this is going to affect your 7th house. So partnerships and marriage, long-term committed relationships, and your relationships with other people in general. The 7th house describes how you interact with others. And it can also describe, especially specifically the descendant, which is the exact opposite point of the ascendant, what we reject about ourselves specifically, right? And so sometimes that might be what you want to work with instead of themes of partnership and marriage. But keep in mind that does include business partnerships. Any kind of long-term relationship that you might have would fall under the 7th house. If you have Cancer rising, it'll be a 6th house full moon for you. So work, health, pets, your daily routines, employees, if you have them, also fall under the 6th house. And then for Leo, we have the 5th house is your full moon. So creativity and children, romance and true love fall under the 5th house, not marriage, right? That's Venus's domain. That's 7th house, like we just talked about, the archetype of Libra and partnership. But the 5th house is the natural house of Leo, and Leo rules the heart, okay? So this also has to do with pleasurable activities, hobbies, sports, and also risk-taking and gambling are governed by the 5th house. And I would suggest that if you do gamble in any way, you might want to stay away from doing any sort of gambling at this particular full moon, just because it is kind of challenging in that way. Okay. For Virgo rising, 4th house is the house that this full moon will be happening in for you. And so that's home and family. It's real estate. It's later life. It's also your parents, okay? And it can be one or both. Now, 4th and 10th house typically rule the mother and father, and different ways of approaching astrology assign those 2 houses differently. What I typically encourage folks to do, if you're looking at a single parent, look a little more closely at your natal chart, because your personal natal chart is what I found will give you clues as to whether the 4th house rules your mother or father and the 10th house rules the other. But you'll see those clues in your natal chart. And then for Libra, 3rd house. So communication, local travel and transportation. This is communication and travel is going to happen in proximity to you, in close proximity, so not long distance. That's 9th house. Also governs childhood education, writing, your siblings, your neighbors, and your immediate environment. So like your neighborhood and your community fall under the 3rd house. If you have Scorpio rising, this is going to be a 2nd house full moon for you. So wealth and possessions, movable assets, not real estate, and money that you earn by the work that you do. And then it also governs expenses. Okay. Danielle says, don't forget the transitional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter too. That is correct. We do have a couple of signs that have kind of multiple rulers. And I don't discount the traditional rulers, even though we do have modern rulers for those houses, because I've found that the traditional rulers are quite often relevant, even in a modern examination of transits. For Sagittarius, of course, this is 1st house. So a 1st house full moon is going to deal with issues around personality and identity, self-expression, your physical body and appearance, your image, right? And the role that you play in the world. So this is how you interact with the world. It can also be like your mannerisms, your way of expressing yourself. And then for Capricorn, this will be a 12th house full moon. So privacy and seclusion, spirituality, unconscious mind, retreating from the world. And then the 12th house also has to do with institutions of seclusion. So this is relevant for folks who work with prisons or correctional facilities, hospitals or nursing homes, any kind of residential facility, or even like a boarding school. That would fall under like the 12th house. Aquarius, 11th house is this full moon. So friends, organizations, and hopes and dreams. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to kind of give birth to a dream if you have Aquarius rising. And then for Pisces, 10th house, career awards, recognition, achievement, status and reputation as well. And that can be status and reputation for good or for ill. So keep that in mind. So if anyone is joining late, if you want me to recap for you what house and themes this is going to touch on for you by rising sign, just let me know what your sidereal rising sign is in the comments, and I will jump back and recap that for you. And what we'll do now is kind of jump in and talk about the Sagittarius archetypes and Sagittarius themes, and that'll help us explore how we can put this particular full moon to use. So Sagittarius is a fire sign, right? It's action-oriented, it's passionate about ideals, adaptable to new and varied or different experiences. Sagittarius, the energy of Sagittarian energy is expansive, it's open, it's idealistic, it's friendly and fun-loving. Jovial, that's the word we associate with Jupiter. It's a perfect word to describe Sagittarius. But it's the energy of exploration in the sense of it seeks out the new and the unknown. And the point of that is expanding our knowledge, expanding our understanding of the world and the knowledge that we have to draw on as we move through the world. Okay? So as far as archetypes, Sagittarius talks to us about the philosopher or the teacher, the free thinker, the priest, the traveler and explorer. It's also the lawgiver, the benefactor, or the student. Sagittarius seeks understanding, and that understanding is what brings about wisdom. So it represents a higher state, right? And that higher state exists beyond knowledge learning. It's what happens when you're able to synthesize knowledge learning and experience. Those two pieces, when you bring them together, result in wisdom, right? It also represents faith, but not only in a religious sense. It represents faith in humanity, okay? For contemplation, this is an interesting thing. So I have learned my lesson. I keep this book right at hand, and it's going to be backwards on the live stream. But I would encourage you, if you don't have this book, get a copy. It's Stephen Forrest's The Inner Sky. And in it, he talks about both the positive and negative ways that different zodiac archetypes can be expressed. But in that book, one thing that he observes is that Sagittarius isn't the archer. Sagittarius is the archer's arrow. And I feel that that's a very significant shift in understanding Sagittarian energy, to see it as the arrow and not the archer itself. And so let's talk a little bit about what does that arrow do? Well, it shoots high in the air, right? And that vantage point that it achieves from way up in the air gives it an overarching perspective of everything that's below, right? So then it's able to seek its exact destination from that elevated perspective. And it can seek that destination with an absolutely unwavering singularity of purpose from that higher expanded perspective. And so if Gemini, which is the opposite, the counterpart of Sagittarius, if Gemini is the detail-oriented, the analytical, and if Gemini is specific, Sagittarius then represents the big picture perspective, right? The holistic worldview, the taking a step back and getting a new perspective, which is especially important to do when we've been up close and personal with something so long that we no longer see it for what it really is. Danielle says goals. And yes, it's that aiming at a target, right? And so ultimately, Sagittarius is about the growth and expansion of your mind, okay? And so that's part of what we want to play with. So that growth and expansion of your mind, that comes through the expansion of experience, which happens through travel, it happens through learning, it happens through contemplation. And then you bring that expanded point of view back down to earth, to mankind, like the arrow, right? So what I want you to do now is grab your paper and your pen. Let me see where I put my pen. I just had it before I started the broadcast. So considering the house that Sagittarius occupies in your natal chart, what I want you to do is to ask yourself whether being small-minded or less open to new ideas, new experiences, new information, or other points of view is holding you back from growth or from achieving what you want in your life. Is there a belief or an ideology behind that comes from early childhood conditioning? Something that perhaps you've outgrown that's not serving you any longer. Is it possible that that belief was taught to you rather than being... Sorry about that. I had a reminder go off on my phone right in the middle of the broadcast. I'm going to have to remember that. I have it set for 8 o'clock, so obviously it's 8 o'clock. But is it possible that that belief was taught to you rather than being a natural conclusion that you arrived to on your own, through your own understanding and through your own experience and your own exposure to ideas of others outside your native culture, outside your belief system, or a conclusion that you came through your own contemplation? I'm creeping you out right now. How so, Bree? I'm curious now. And so what I want you to think about is, if there is a belief like that, is it still serving you? Or is it something that you can let go? And I want you to consider, based on the house that Sagittarius occupies in your natal chart, ask yourself, where are you staying small instead of stepping into your fuller, larger role in the world? Where are you not sharing what you've learned, what you've discovered, and what you've experienced that can benefit others? And why is that? What is it that you need to let go of or release in order to step into your larger purpose? Okay, so what I want you to do is write down on your paper what it is you wish to release. Okay, we're going to spend a few minutes doing that. I'm going to recap these prompts just quickly for anyone who might need a recap. Ask yourself whether being small-minded or less open to new ideas, experiences, and information or points of view is holding you back from growth, or if it's holding you back from achieving what you want or manifesting what you want. Is there a belief that comes to you through childhood conditioning or that was taught to you that's not serving you any longer? Can you let it go? Are you staying small instead of stepping into a fuller, larger role in the world? Where are you not sharing what you've learned through experience, what you've discovered, or what you know that can benefit other people? And why is that? Is there a fear behind that? And I want to bring up fear specifically because right now we have Saturn touring Sagittarius, and Saturn specifically speaks to our fears. Okay? And so for some folks, this may specifically be a time of facing a fear related to the house that Sagittarius occupies in your natal chart. Okay? So write down what you want to release on your piece of paper. Everyone take a few minutes. I'm going to jump in and do mine, and then we'll reconnect here in a moment and do the fun part, the releasing. Tracy says Libra is your rising sign. So Tracy, for Libra rising, let me scroll back up. If you need a refresher on this, that's third house. So local travel, nearby communication, short distance communication, childhood education, writing, siblings, neighbors, your immediate environment, so like your neighborhood or your community, are all governed by the third house. Okay. Good to have you with us, Dylan. We're just kind of finishing up, I think. I know I'm done. I want to see if anyone else is done. Writing what it is we are letting go of with tonight's full moon. And so I want to share with you what I wrote down. So I didn't really think about this beforehand. So this totally is, it's like spur of the moment. totally spontaneous. And for me, this is a 7th house full moon. It's relationships. And so it's interesting about relationships. When you have a full moon there, we often talk about how a full moon brings about a culmination or an ending. Well, it doesn't always bring about an ending to a relationship. Sometimes it represents the end of a stage, or like reaching a milestone. And so, for instance, in my case, that was my 20th wedding anniversary last week, right? And so for me, approaching this from that point of view of relationships and how I interact with others, I'm really kind of digging into my Gemini ascendant, my Capricorn sun here. I have Saturn in Gemini right on my ascendant. And so the dynamic here is that Gemini gets a rap for being superficial, right? Well, I can tell you that in my case, because I have Saturn in the 1st house, because I have Capricorn as my sun sign, it's a very buttoned up tight kind of, like, I sometimes have a difficult time communicating what I really think and what I really feel in a way that makes me feel like I'm being understood, right? And so what I revert to by default when faced with that kind of uncomfortable dynamic is I just clam up and shut up and don't. And so, for instance, if you feel like your relationship with me, if you're someone that I know, if you feel like your relationship with me is kind of superficial, like I don't ever really talk about deep, important stuff with you, part of it is that Saturn in the 1st house and Capricorn sun playing into it. I'm a very reserved person in that regard. I will talk to you all day long about stuff that's not super, super important to me. But when it comes to talking about stuff that's super important to me, it's like I get scared, right? And so I tend to not do that. And so what I'm choosing to work with for this full moon, in my statement, I've said here that I release my fear of sharing my most intimate thoughts and feelings with others. I release my fear of open sharing and accept that any rejection which might arise from speaking my own truth is serving to bring about honesty and openness in my relationships. That's big and scary for me. But when you think about it, if someone is going to reject you for speaking your truth and standing in your truth, that's a relationship that's built on a lie, right? If you are afraid of speaking your truth to that person or standing in your truth to that person just to have them in your life, that's not a very honest or open relationship. It's a lie of a relationship, right? This is a big step for me. Thanks everybody for being here for it. Not what I was expecting to do tonight. But what we do, now that you've written down what it is you're ready to let go of, what we do is we state aloud our intention to release it. Danielle says, hi, I got Saturn on the ascendant in Aries. Yes. So state your intention. So what you want to do is you want to take this to a fire safe place. That could be a barbecue or fire pit if you have one outside, or a fireplace in your house. I've burned this in my kitchen sink before when I lived in places that didn't really have a fire safe place, just so I could be, near a source of water and kind of have it in a protected space, right? So you're going to state aloud, I release this whatever habit, mindset, fear, person, it could be a person, that's no longer serving me. I thank it for the lesson that it brought to me, and I release it with love and gratitude. So here we go. I release this fear of open self-expression. It's almost kind of a fear of vulnerability in a sense, right? A fear of rejection. I release this fear that's no longer serving me, and I thank it for the lesson that it brought me, and I release it with gratitude. I had to turn down my ceiling fan. It's hot. It's summer here. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this lighter to burn this paper with the ceiling fan on high. But you just burn it, and burn it completely if you're burning it. If you're tearing it up, that works too. Tear it up into little tiny itty bitty pieces and just let it go, right? But make sure if you're burning it, that it burns completely. And here we go. Wow, this really wants to be let go of, because it is just gone. One fell swoop, all done. There you have it. But be safe when you're doing this. Practice safety, please. I would not want anything unfortunate to happen just because you're practicing a releasing practice. Okay, and then when you're done with your releasing, I really recommend spend a few moments in reflection in meditation. Spend a few moments with the gratitude that you've cultivated for whatever it is that you let go of, because whatever it was, no matter how challenging or difficult it was while it was in your life, it taught you something, and it taught you something valuable while it was here. Okay? That feels so good. So I want to see what everyone is saying here. So Brie, of course, said I creeped her out because it was spot on. I'm glad. Yay, I love it when stuff is spot on. Amanda, let's see. I got to click on the read more here, Amanda. I release desires to rely on food for comfort. I release negative thoughts of not being worthy of the blessings that are coming my way. I release allowing anxiety to control all decisions. I release my anger towards family and friends that are not supportive towards my journey. And I release the demand of perfection I place on myself and not allowing myself to be proud of all accomplishments, even when not perfect. I love that, Amanda. I love that. What's the saying? They say done is better than perfect. There's another one too about perfect being the enemy of something, and I can't remember how it goes. If anyone remembers that, share it in the comments. Danielle says, funny, I'm looking at the opposite. Instead of setting long-term goals, I'm looking at short-term, but Saturn is sitting on my moon in Sagittarius. Yes, and Saturn really wants you to be focused on the long game. That's very true. Very true. Thank you for that happy anniversary, Jonna. I appreciate it. Let's see. I keep scrolling and then the comments reset. Maybe I'll look at them on my computer here. No, they're not refreshing on my computer either. That's hardly any fun. Let's see. Here we go. Feels like a ton has lifted off my shoulders. Yes, Amanda, you are touching on what I love about the full moon releasing. It's like a weight being lifted, a weight that you didn't know that you were carrying because you were carrying it for so long, you grew accustomed to it, right? Kind of like the frog in the water, where if you put them in boiling water, you jump out right away. But if you slowly turn up that heat, we don't realize. And we end up carrying things far longer than we need to. And one of the other reasons why I encourage to practice the releasing is because sometimes it's that simple act of letting go of something, of making space energetically in your life that invites the new stuff to come in and fill its spot and lets you move forward, right? It's like cleaning out your closet, isn't it? And so it's very refreshing. And it's funny because I enjoy the full moon releasing practices almost more than I enjoy the intention setting that we do at the new moon. But it's been lovely to have everyone. I'm so glad you all joined me. And what I want to do now is just get back to my notes. I want to see if I had any major announcements. And I don't think I really did, other than I wanted to make sure everybody knew the July overview and short reports and the full horoscopes by sign are already up on the website. They've been up for a couple of days now. So they're available. They're available right now for paid subscribers. So if you have a paid monthly or annual subscription, you can go in. You don't have to wait until July 1 to read those. You can read them now. If you want to sign up, go ahead. You're going to get a 2-week free trial. Or you can wait until July 1. July 1, they'll be free to the public, and you can read them then. It's just the advanced access that you have to be a subscriber for. And then Monday, July 2nd, 1:30 Mountain, 3:30 Eastern Daylight, 8:30 British Standard Time, and 5:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're having our Sidereal Insights Astro Update, and I will be talking more about what to expect as we move into July. July is going to be kind of a challenging month because we do have those eclipses like we were talking about at the beginning of the broadcast. We do have Mars retrograde the entire month, and we have Mars going out of bounds, which is a whole other ball of wax. Out of bounds planets don't live by the commonly accepted rules of society, and out of bounds Mars is no different. And so that's going to flavor how we experience the retrograde and kind of almost augment some of that. And so we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that But like I said, that's Monday the 2nd at 1:30 my time, which is 3:30 Eastern, 8:30 British Standard Time, and 5:30 in the morning if you're joining us from Australia. And then, of course, I think most of you know we did launch our YouTube channel earlier this year, so please feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I upload all the edited versions of our broadcasts on YouTube, so if you miss a live stream on the Mystick Physick Facebook page or here in the group, you can always catch them on the YouTube channel or on the website. I've been archiving all the videos on the website as well. And so thank you very much for joining me. It has been my absolute pleasure and very lovely to have you with, and my best wishes to all of you, and I hope that you encounter positive and exciting change in your life as we go through this eclipse season coming up. And thank you, and we'll talk to you next time. Let's see, wait a minute, there's more comments. Because my feed has been spotty, can we rewatch somewhere? Yes! I hope you're just catching that. Yes. You can rewatch this replay. With these broadcasts, I do an edited version to kind of shorten up that quiet period where we're writing. And then I do a little notice that this is where you can pause it to do your writing before we get into the end of the intention setting or the releasing. And so for some folks, that might be a better way to experience the replay. But yes, you can catch it on the Mystick Physick Astrology YouTube channel, or once I have it ready to go, it will also be posted on the website at mystickphysick.com right on the blog. Okay? So thanks everyone for joining me, and join me again next time. We'll see you Monday the 2nd. Thank you.